All right. Good afternoon, Dr. Flint, or it is afternoon here. So I'm going to go over my mini course now, over some of the features that are in it, kind of talk about my thought process behind it. I opted to use Google Forms um, primarily because you made a comment about there was a possibility of creating an entire course in Google Forms, which intrigued me because I've had some interaction with Google Forms, and that was not a functionality that I was really familiar with. So I was really intrigued by that. So I decided to pursue that. And this is the final product. So basically, I've got 6 sections within this form, with each section taking the place of a specific module. So I have module one, which is our home page you see here, and then 4 lessons and one course conclusion, kind of tying it together. And it worked really well. I was surprised by how well it worked, to be honest. There are some drawbacks, certainly, to using Google Forms, which I mentioned in my assessment and evaluation assignment for this week. But I was pleased with the outcome. So the title for the course, Turning the Light On for Virtual Students. This is what you see when you first click the link. Connecting students to learning via WebEx. The way I organized my home screen, it was very similar to the homepage assignment that we used, although I did move some content around. So I have our course description here with the tag list right under that, and then we kind of go into a different breakdown of who should take the course and other specific course information, including our outcomes, the course content, glossary, and so on. It's all right there. And then at the bottom is where I include my bio, as well as the course metaphor and the biblical foundations. Just the idea of having that at the bottom, at the end of all that other stuff, this is kind of what's important, was kind of the draw on that. And my metaphor course was turning a light on in a dark room. And I tried to reference that as much as possible through the course of the mini course. And hopefully you'll be able to see that. The biblical foundation, of course, the idea of man seeking truth, us as followers of Christ to be a light. And then at the end of that, the light is not there to be static. The light is there to be dynamic, to cause change, to draw other people into the light. Not that they may be static, but that they too may turn around and draw others into the light. So that's the idea behind that biblical foundation. So that's the end of the homepage. Not a lot of technology, mostly just content with some images. And it's section 2, in this case, lesson 1, the dark room, online versus traditional classrooms. Again, the instructional content, for the most part, what I composed is mostly going to be text with images and with the other supporting materials that I was able to generate alongside that. So again, here we start with the text and the images. Just identifying challenges in virtual instruction for instructors, for students, talking about some of those advantages that are actually there, and then kind of tying back into that metaphor, the idea of, without that light, you're putting together a puzzle in the dark, which led into our first video / quiz. This is why e-learning is killing education. It's a great TED Talk. But anyway, I found the video on YouTube, and then I was able to edit the video to include quiz function at the end. And basically, the student has roughly 10-15 seconds to read the question on the screen. There are 4 options. All of it pertains primarily to the video. And then they select the one they like. And after that time is up, it will reveal what the answer should be. And then there's 5 questions total at the end of that. So following that, we have a short answer here. And it's a prompt describing your own experience. This is just a very straightforward Google form feature, but it allowed for a responsive and reflective short answer question. And then we get into our case study. So the case study was created with Adobe Express or Spark, which is really, really good for this sort of thing. And it came out looking a little bit like a Facebook story or an Instagram reel or something like that. Basically, I have a picture of Keith, our protagonist, which our case study kind of turned into a case study / story. Keith is our protagonist. He's an instructor who, in this first part, he's experienced with the classroom, but he's never really taught virtually. He's scared to death, and so he's kind of coming to that realization of how much like a darkroom virtual instruction can be. So that's the premise behind this. And about every 15 seconds, the text on the screen changes over to carry on the story so that students are able to follow along. Following that, we come to our first reflection question, which I combined the reflection and discussion questions together. Seemed to work very well for this format. And what I did was, you'll notice the actual discussion question itself, which is identify 3 challenges you think you'll face as a virtual instructor. You'll notice it's a hyperlink, and that takes you to the Padlet room for Padlet board for our course. We have the course name at the top. This is our reflection forum. We have the 4 lessons or 4 sections that we have that actually have a reflection question, along with the reflection question underneath each one. Students have the opportunity to kind of experience asynchronous learning. Even though we're talking about WebEx and virtual delivery, a lot of that is geared towards synchronous learning. Everybody logged into the same meeting at the same time. This kind of adds an asynchronous side to it, which is pretty cool. And I was really pleased with Padlet and what it offered. So then we go back to our lesson 1. We've hit the conclusion with our extended resources, 2 resources specifically pertaining to virtual instruction, obstacles, and what you can do to overcome them. So then we can click and go on to lesson 2. The darkroom continued, creating the online environment. This is all oriented towards creating a WebEx meeting and then also preparing students for the WebEx meeting, usually in the form of a welcome letter. So we've got some images to draw attention. The second part of our case study, Keith realizes he's going to have to teach virtually, and he tracks down another instructor who has already had to do it to get the take, as so many of us often do. We go to that person who's been through it to find out what we can expect. So we got an image of Tom, one of Keith's friends, and the storyline here is going through Keith speaking to Tom, getting some feedback, and Tom saying, hey, you want to make sure you do this, which in this case is prepare your meeting, prepare your students, which takes us into the instructional content, again, identified around preparing the classroom for learning with a informative YouTube video without a quiz discussing how to host a meeting in WebEx, and then preparing the students for learning, which comes out to a welcome letter. So we give that content talking about what you should see in a welcome letter. And then we have another short answer. This is actually taking advantage of a paragraph response to give students more room to write. So you have a prompt, you're hosting a Bible study online, and write a welcome letter. Write a welcome letter for your participants, your students, those who are coming to that Bible study. What should you put in it? And then once you've completed this, you're able to compare your welcome letter against our first infographic, which was created with Canva to contain those 6 key elements that were just discussed that a welcome letter should contain. And then, of course, the question is, did your letter contain all 6 elements? And they're able to respond. So then we get into our first traditional quiz, 5 mine went completely blank. 5 multiple answer questions to choose from, multiple choice. There we go. All pertaining to this lesson specifically. Straightforward forms. And then another reflection question, same as before. The question itself is a hyperlink to the Padlet room where students can respond. We have the extended resources area. Again, these resources are specific to setting up a WebEx and drafting a welcome letter. So that's lesson 3. Lesson 4, Finding your way in the dark. Excuse me, that was lesson 2. This is lesson 3. Lesson 3, finding your way in the dark, engaging and communicating with virtual students. Again, some more pictures and text. Talking about effective and responsive communication, guidelines for communication within virtual instruction. And then we have Keith. We're back to Keith again. Keith is having another problem. He's set up the meeting. He sent a welcome letter, but he's just not really connecting with his students. He goes to yet another teammate, Paige, who has been around a while. And Paige knows what he's doing. And Keith asked him, "Can I sit in your class? Can I see what happens in your class? How you approach this?" And so he sees what Paige is doing, and after the class is over, Keith says, "Paige, I need help. What can I do?" And Paige says, "Listen, you got to change up your style, and I got a video that can help you." And we got the video as well, posted right here. No quiz on this one. It's just a straightforward YouTube video. However, we do go into another quiz here, another 5-question quiz. And these do contain references to both the instructional content before as well as the video. Again, straightforward Google Forms. Our third reflection question, again, another link to the Padlet room. We were in lesson 3. Here's our lesson 3 question. Okay. Extended resources specific to virtually instructing or presenting. And then we can go to lesson 4. So lesson 4, flipping the switch, using tools to support learning. So this is specifically dealing with WebEx tools and tricks. Part 4 of our study. Keith thinks he can do what Paige can do, but students just aren't buying it. So Keith reaches out to Paige. "Hey, I saw you do something really cool in class the other day. What was that thing you did?" And Paige responds, "It was a poll. One of the tools in WebEx. I got a whole handout for you." And so he sends that to Keith, and then we kind of talk about those tools and what perhaps might be in that handbook here, culminating in a specific YouTube video which really deals with the primary tools that we've been talking about, demonstrates them, shows how to access them, and then at the end of that YouTube video, it's been edited to include another quiz, just like the one we incorporated earlier, pertaining specifically, in this case, to WebEx tools. And not just which tool would be good for blah, but really trying to tie it into some of the stuff we've been talking about. So following that, we got another infographic of WebEx tools, again created with Canva. And then it goes into short answer questions. So another little 4-question quiz here, but it's all short answers and kind of given a scenario. So in this first one, we want a detailed response. Well, what feature would be good for allowing students to write a detailed response? Well, of course, that would be chat. So it kind of takes them outside the box as far as what's been written, makes them think just a little bit. And then that goes on to extended resources. So you'll notice no reflection question here. That's because I moved that one. Given the context of that particular question, I really like the way that it fit with the conclusion. So we'll go there. The last part. So Keith has talked with his teammates. He's gotten their advice. He's heeded their advice, learned from their mistakes, and he's been able to complete his first successful virtual instruction course. He's helped his students be successful. The students arrive on campus shortly thereafter for the in-person portion of their training, and they look Keith up because he's been so successful at connecting with them and engaging with them. So happy ending. Leads into a review. So this is a review that was created through Powtoon animations, and it really kind of highlights both how good Powtoon is while also highlighting one of the drawbacks of Google Forms, because you're really limited, and as far as I have been able to discover, you're really limited in terms of static images and videos. So in the case of this particular animation, It had to be saved as a video on YouTube and then embedded into the presentation. So, but it's a review, as you can see. It's going through key takeaways from each of the 4 lessons and ending with, again, instructor and contact information. And this leads right into our final quiz. 15 questions, multiple choice taken from the entire course, all 4 lessons. Straightforward quiz. A final reflection question, which is really kind of a cumulative question of, how has this course challenged you? What could you do different? What did you learn, really? And then it takes us into the conclusion. So thanks for completing the course, submitting, ensuring to have your grades, your responses graded, and also feedback generated for you. And then, of course, once again, please contact the author with any comments, questions, or concerns. So that is my course. Thanks.